Now I'm going to bob in the blue. Let's do this. Make this nice and dark. There we go. This is going to work. There's this. So this now is nice and dark. There we go. And now we're going to do the bottom bit. Now we're just going to bob in the bottom bit like this, and that'll darken it all up. And then at that stage I will be able and suddenly I'm beginning to look at something. It's paid off. I think in a minute we'll take that off and we'll have an overall look at the whole picture, because I have a feeling, I wouldn't say it was a gamble, but after all, so much of my artwork was painted up to 50 years ago now, and it's still around. So it is worth going that extra mile, particularly as I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now. So really, I should push the boat out while I've got the chance. Because there's not really a big time pressure. It's not like when I was doing all the book covers and things, and you were only as good as the last job. I mean, I really do have the luxury of trying to get this exactly right. There. And then we could begin the camouflage on the underside. So this is the beginning of the camouflage. There's that. And then let's try and do this bit. That. And then let's just do this bit. Obviously, in a bit, I'm going to have the yellow come down there. But now, what I'm going to do is dilute the blue. Dilute it a bit. And now, let's just fairly loosely put in these guys. And I think it could be something like this. That can come like that. Now then, I think that's more or less it. I think that can come down. I think this is going to work. Yes, look. You saw, here we are. It's all going to pay off. So we'll just get that done, and that's it for today. So this comes back like this, and this comes back like this. That will be about there. Oh, look. Oh, I'm getting a feel. This is really beginning to come together. I'm just so pleased. Because it was looking a bit funny earlier on. It's, no. I think that needs to be like that. Got to be very careful to try and keep that rounded feeling. So I think this comes in like this. Now I think that needs something up like that, roughly speaking. Aye. I think that's about right. Yeah, let's leave that like that, floating. There's that. It's quite fun seeing how these, that bit I'm going to leave for a second. Now this is the important bit. Yeah. Then let's, this is the bit. There's that. Well, now I'm feeling quite optimistic. Because after all, this is camouflage, so it should actually disguise the shape, not emphasize the shape. So a bit, in fact, look, I'm just going to emphasize that.
This is reminding me of Hot Shot.
Oh dear, is it?
Do you remember the Hot Shot?
I do, yeah. Shall I talk about it?
Yeah.
So when I first started out, I was working for a sculptor. That was before I was a proper commercial artist.
George Mitchell.
George Mitchell. And I was commissioned by Nova magazine. I don't know how. I used to paint up my cars in quite wild hot rod type things, and that was left over from when I was in Guernsey. So I don't know if they saw it. I can't remember how it came about, but I had a reputation for being able to paint up wild cars and make them look rather wild. And so they contacted me and commissioned me to paint up a car which they were going to pose in front of Buckingham Palace in all its go faster glory with a model. And I suppose it was like a fashion shoot with a hotshot car. So we and dear George, the sculptor that I work for, lent me his brand new Ford Transit van, which was like a Rolls Royce in those days. We're talking about the 60s. And it really was like a Rolls Royce. And me and my best mate, John, went off to Park Lane to an underground garage to paint a car. And I had left them to get all the paint, told them the colours I needed. I'm 80% certain I would have specified the paint, because in those days you could buy special paint for coach painting, brush painting. And we turned up, and step one, disaster number one, George had had a great big roof rack made for his van, a massive thing in wood, and we went down into this underground car park and there was a deafening crash, and we had hit the roof rack on the low roof of the entrance to the garage, and I'm pretty certain we pushed it back about an inch on the roof. That was step one. Step two, there were the yards waiting for us with what looked like a brand new Mini, which was a very new car in those days, a brand new state-of-the-art Mini, and this is what we were going to paint. And the owner seemed to think that we were going to enhance the value of it. He would actually sell it at a profit. And then they showed us the paint, and they had bought completely the wrong paint. It was a, acrylics didn't exist in those days, but it was a paint that would take at least a day and a half to dry. And foolishly, because it was cold and it was winter, they gave us a bottle of whiskey that they had bought specially for us to help us keep warm. Disaster, because I mean, we were both quite young, and this was a big, strong bottle of whiskey, good quality whiskey. And off they went. So me and John started, and it quickly became obvious that this paint was not going to dry quickly, which of course is what I desperately needed in order to achieve the effect. And I left John at some stage just dribbling paint on the roof. And I think John was standing on the roof, and a lovely gleaming Rolls Royce came in, because this was the underground garage for a Park Lane block of flats, very shishy. And the owner got out and did a double take, because here are two lads vandalising a Mini with paint everywhere, and John, who by then had had a reasonable amount of the whiskey, just looked at him and said, yeah, we'll do yours next, mate. And of course he came over, and he was quite a heavy guy. I think he had a big rig on, and he said, you touch my FFF car and you'll never walk again. Well, we believed that, we really did. And anyway, so we certainly finished a bottle of whiskey and drove off, leaving the car, well, the best we could do. And I was aware the paint was beginning to run.
And what was the brief?
The brief was to paint it up, make it look really quite wild, with the monsters on the side and things like this, which is what I was good at. And it was like a drag racing car.
And it had to have a logo.
And it had a logo. So I painted Hot Shot on the side. It was the last thing I did, in nice, big, flaming, highlighted letters. And off we went. And I suppose I must have phoned them, or maybe they phoned me. And this woman, in fact, I think it was the famous woman herself, called Molly Parkin, said, well, dear, it's not quite what we were expecting. And she politely said it looked a bloody mess. And I, of course, said, yes, well, you see, the problem is you didn't buy the right paint. And she said, well, I dare say, but the trouble is, dear, we turned up to do the shoot, which of course we couldn't do, and the photographer was going to do a picture, and he looked and there's this word on the side, hot shit. And basically Hot Shot had run with all this shenanigans. And so that was my debut and exit from swinging 60s magazine London. Yes. And so, as I'm always saying, you really do have to have the right paint. All I'm doing is popping in some sort of highlights to remind me tomorrow of where we're at. And then just to darken up the base a bit. Well, the nice thing is about acrylic paint, it does stay wet for a little bit, and then you could literally mix the paints on the board. There. There. So we'll just do that little bit and then we're done. Aye. And then I think that would be about it. Do you think? Let's just try and do a bit here. This is my guide. Here we are. It's going to be a bit fiddly getting this right, but what I like about these camouflage patterns is you can moderate each section a bit at a time. There, it's slowly coming together. In fact, I'm going to, while I've got the paint mixed, you see, look, it's beginning to bring it out, a bit like a fishy type shape. Yeah, it's beginning to come out a bit now. So it'll be quite a laborious business of building it up. But it's not far off being done properly in oil paint. And then in a minute we'll pull back and see how it stands out. Yes. I think it's beginning to pull out. Yeah, let's try it. Now then. There, you all right? I think I'll stop that now. I could just pop in the deep phthalo blue, because that at least doesn't need to be done. think it's getting there. Right. I think it's getting there now, Mona. Right. Yes. Right. Then I think I'll do. Yeah. Yes, it's going to be a fiddly business getting this right. See, that's got a feel to it, which a bit annoyed. It still isn't quite what I want. But it's getting there, I think. Yeah, I think it's getting there. Then in a minute we can pull back and see how it's looking. I don't normally put the paint on this thickly, but because there's so much paint on there, it actually goes on rather well. Yeah. It's going on very well because it's so thick. Yeah. Yeah. Right. There. This is getting quite, I've got to still get the roundedness. I think it'll be a bit of highlight through there. That can wait till tomorrow. And because I've made the masks, I think what I might do is, tomorrow, that's the top one, I think tomorrow, yeah, to get that rounded feeling, of course I changed the shape a bit. I might have to do a new mask down here. And then I think airbrushing will be the answer. I think airbrushing. I think to make a new mask. Here we are. Yep. I think a bit of airbrushing tomorrow would do the trick. Won't do it tonight. But that is the answer, I think. There. So we can take this off now. Ah! Now I can sit back and have a look. I don't think I will use up any of that paint. I think that can just, oh, I know what I can do. Here we are. this brush will do it. Let's get this in a nice deep phthalo blue. Look at that. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. There. And I think this is going to be, oh, I don't know. No, I think that's going to stay black. Let's just give it a bit of blue up here. I'm very tempted. I just want to go through, but I better not. I'd better not. I think it's best to stop at this stage. There, they can all stay there. And then I can move back a bit to have a look.